What a terrifying moment aboard that West Coast flight. Listen to this.
Can you imagine being on that flight and hearing the banging from the cargo hold? That was a passenger recording that video. Sounds from the baggage handler trapped right below them, and this could have big implications for security.
It all started in Seattle. ABC's Neil Karlinski is there. Good morning, Neil.
George, good morning. This one takes Sleepless in Seattle to a whole new level. The baggage handler claims he fell asleep on the job, and that is how he wound up in the belly of a 737 in the air, screaming for his life.
I think we have heard a noise from the baggage compartment.
Alaska Airlines Flight 448 from Seattle to Los Angeles had just taken off when the pilot says he heard pounding and screaming coming up from the floor under him and radioed in for an emergency landing.
Be a person in there, so we're going to come back around.
Passengers in the air were stunned and scared. One of them recording the banging on his cell phone.
Started hearing yelling for help, and so we started yelling at the flight attendant.
Sure enough, when the plane landed after just 14 minutes, you could see him being led into an ambulance. A bewildered baggage handler who says he fell asleep on the job inside, waking to his horror in the air, where he pounded and screamed from the plane's front baggage compartment under the passengers. Fortunately, it's the same compartment that holds pets, so it was pressurized and kept at a safe temperature.
A U.S. Marshal emerged and he started yelling really loud into the ground, "Hey, we're turning around! We're getting ready to land! Hold on to something!" It's pretty crazy.
Alaska Air says the man is a contractor for Menzies Aviation and that he passed a drug test after being checked out at a nearby hospital. They say his team noticed him missing and called and texted his cell phone, but didn't get an answer. Authorities say the baggage handler is doing just fine this morning. He wasn't hurt. No charges are planned. As for his future and his job here at the airport, stay tuned. George?
Okay, Neil, thanks very much. ABC's aviation analyst John Nance also in Seattle this morning. John, thanks for joining us. Listen, we've heard about stowaways before, but I've never heard of anybody getting stuck in a cargo hold by accident.
Well, this has happened a couple of times in the past history of jetliners, George, but it's very unusual. And in this particular case, it looks like it's the result of an assumption. They couldn't find him. They assumed he was someplace else. It was the end of a long day, and they assumed he went home. He hadn't.
These guys do work long days, exhausting hours, routine part of the job.
Yeah, they do. And I think that's one of the things this investigation has to really look at is not just did this individual fall asleep, obviously so, but is there chronic fatigue out there? Because we don't want fatigued people around jetliners. And if the schedules are creating this sort of situation, it needs to be looked at.
Yeah, we've seen it with pilots. Now we see it with the handlers. But just the bottom line here, the cargo hold is pressurized. So what kind of danger was this man actually in?
Mainly boredom, fright, because it is warm and the same air and the same pressurization you have in the cabin is down there. There's no light, though, and on top of that, there's no in-flight movie and no restroom, so it can get very inconvenient.
Can't blame him for being scared. Okay, John Nance, thanks very much.